Do you need positive steps to immediately bring cash into your business and cut out non-critical expenses? Join me to find out how you cash in and cut out. Hello, hi, welcome to my channel, Kingdom Business Sense. I'm Anita Wiafe-Asinor of OML Africa, an entrepreneur and a HR and business consultant. In my last video, we talked about COVID business survival tactics, and I talked to you about tactic 1, which was on planning. In this video today, we're going to talk about tactic 2, which is all around cashing in and cutting out non-critical expenses. Now, with COVID, as business owners, we are having to really manage the bottom line. And this really requires managing the financials really well. And if you don't do that well, you're going to find yourselves in trouble. So, number one, what you first need to do is to make sure that there's a central point where all the cash is coming in, so that you can manage the cash flow and expenses. You can see everything coming in. Number 2, you want to improve the way you are collecting your cash from your customers without affecting the relationships you have with your customers, all right? So we want to do it responsibly. And you can do this by, for example, offering them early payment discounts. You know, if you pay all of it all together early, so before the 21 days, I'll give you 5% discount, 20% discount, you decide. You can also look at part payment. So maybe you've given them an invoice for $500 and maybe they can't pay all of it in one go. Can they pay you 30%, 40%, 50% and then pay you the rest at an agreed time? You can also look at part payments. And then you can look at payment plans. Now, at the moment, payment plans have become a bit difficult because people are struggling to know their cash flow. You're forecasting your cash flow, but at the end of the day, it depends what's going to come in. So maybe what you could consider is agreeing a payment plan by using payment plan ranges. So a minimum and a maximum. So what's the minimum they'll pay? What's the maximum they'll pay? At least then that gives them some options that they know that if nothing else, they have at least they can pay their minimum. All right, so consider using ranges rather than fixed amounts, because sometimes, like for example, for me, at the moment, I don't want to do fixed because I don't like when you have to shift the goalpost. Then it's like it can breach trust, and it's like you told me you pay this, now you're telling me something else. So if there's a range, that means I have to calculate and know the minimum I can pay and the maximum if everything goes accordingly with my cash flow. So remember, you're supposed to have a budget, you're supposed to have a cash flow, and you're supposed to know whether you're cash positive or cash negative in order to do some of these exercises. Number 3 is bringing in the cash. And here I'm going to just touch on different options you can look at. Okay, so for example, you can now, we're being told that customers are going to be price sensitive, or should I say customers are price sensitive now because of the issues going on with people losing their job, businesses slowing down, etc. So people are really looking for cheap deals or affordable, cost-effective products and services. So it means that all of us have to go and look at how we can do this effectively and at the same time try and make small profits or even any profit. So one of the things you can look at is like promotional offers. Okay, what promotional offers can you offer? And please make it meaningful. Right now doing promotional offers, 5%, 10%, again, that's not really going to attract customers. Look at what you can really do. And sometimes it really goes back to looking at what you can remove without impinging on quality to allow you to do that. We may also want to consider selling things in bundles, for example. Sometimes customers find much more value when they are buying things that are in bundles than when they buy things singly. The same way you can do bulk purchase discounts. So if they buy in bulk, you will discount them. That's also something that you can do to try and bring in more cash. Then of course, if you're like in a retail, you can consider a sale. You know, you have stock that is sitting in your warehouse, stock that is sitting in your shop, in your e-commerce, you need to get rid of, because we all know in retail, the longer you keep the stock, the more money you're losing. So find a way to reduce it so that people will buy it. You know, and actually, again, if you're doing a sale, customers are expecting good deals. So doing a 10% sale or a 15% sale right now, I'm not sure how effective it will be, but I think people are more looking around, you know, 40, 50, 70% sales discount. So discount these items that are not moving and get rid of them and get something back. It's better to bring something in than to make a total loss. So just remember, all these activities I'm saying is to bring in the cash. All right, you're doing all this to bring in the cash. So in different streams, you're bringing in the cash. Somebody's paying part payment, you're running promotion. It's all bringing in cash. That's the whole idea of this. You can also consider partnerships. You know, who can you partner with to leverage, all right, to get more money in? Maybe you sell shoes, somebody sells clothes. Could you partner with them? That's also something to consider. You may also want to consider streamlining your services in order to reprice. You have to look at pricing. So for example, if you're training, all right, and maybe you run 3-day training programs, can you relook at the training program and reduce it to 1 day? And then you can reprice, and that makes, they can still get the value, but now it's not in so many days. You just maybe take some of the content and or maybe focus the training more. That's also something to consider. Do you need to move it online to make it more cost effective? So these are some of the things you need to think about when you're thinking about repricing, how you can still give the quality, but by maybe removing some elements that will allow you to bring the quality. Then maybe you want to focus on products and services that are on demand now, you know, in your business. See where you can leverage in your business. For example, designers, pharmacists, you know, they switched, you know, the designers started making masks. They're making masks now, PPEs for us. Pharmacists are making sanitizers. What area of your business can you leverage to bring in cash because the service or product is on demand? You can also diversify. Maybe you don't have an area, but you can diversify into areas where there's demand for products and services. Consider that to bring in the cash as well. And then also lastly, you maybe want to consider how you can maybe explore raising capital into your business, looking at stimulus packages and other deals that are going on out there to bring in the cash. So you can see that there's lots of different ways that you can really bring in the cash, all right? And then when we bring in the cash, the aim is to preserve the cash, is to save the cash. It's not to bring it in and let it go out again. We're trying to bring in as much as possible so we can survive COVID-19. Number 4, we go into the area of expense cutting and reducing costs. You know, how much you're able to reduce and how much you're able to cut is very much dependent on the demands of your operations, all right? And last time I told you, under the financials, you needed to separate critical expenses from non-critical expenses. That's going to help you be effective around cost reduction and expense cutting. So number 4, we will look at cost reduction. So there's some of the key areas to really consider is for number 1, rent. You need to speak to your landlord and renegotiate or negotiate something to help you through. So you can negotiate freezing the rent, you can negotiate reducing the renting period, you can negotiate perhaps giving up some of the space or all of the space. You can consider, can you defer the rent for a period of time? You can also try and negotiate some of those things. So it's very good to have a conversation on the rent, all right? And I guess if you did the brainstorming, you know whether you even still need the office building or the premises that you're renting from. But it's good to have a transparent conversation with your landlords. A lot of landlords have been really understanding because they don't want to also lose you. So try and find a middle ground in order to reduce the burden of the rent right now, and at the same time be able to pay some of your rent. Then the next area is your suppliers. You need to engage with your suppliers and renegotiate. Renegotiate your contracts. Could you look at them expanding the payment periods for you to make it a little bit more easier? Could you look at the in terms of the payment frequency, can it be expanded for you? Can they consider perhaps debt weaving, maybe taking some of it off and then you pay off the rest? That's also something you can consider. You can also look at payment plans, looking at payment plans. Can you reduce the amount you're paying in a payment plan? That's all something that you can talk with your suppliers in concerning what you're owing them, to kind of bring reduce the cost of paying to them as you work your way through COVID-19. And then we move on to our creditors. So these would be your lenders, your banks, your lenders, savings and loans, or your investors, people who've given you money, all right? So here really you're looking at the loan repayments, all right? So here again, you want to discuss, can you reduce the amount you're paying to make it a bit more easier for you right now? And if you negotiate and you're quite transparent with your lenders, your creditors, you may be able to negotiate something for about 6 months in terms of either deferring your payments or reducing your payment amount in order to allow you to be able to pay something through this crisis. It's very important. Again, can you defer loan repayments? What can they do for you? If you can try to reduce some of the payments options there, that would be very, very good as well in bringing down the cost. And then number 5 is actually cutting expenses. Cutting expenses is really looking at, again, your non-essentials and seeing how much can you cut off. So things like subscriptions. Maybe you've subscribed to products and now you don't actually need them. Do you need to downgrade them, cancel them? You can look at subscriptions. Maybe it's travel and transportation. Now, if you've got workers working from home, could you cut the transport allowances or freeze them or reduce them as part of the cost cutting exercise? Travel, could you just make travel to occur when it's really necessary to travel, so putting some rules on there. Stationery, do we need as much stationery now? Can we look for where there's wastage and cut out some of these wastage? So it's really looking at your expenses of your operations and really looking at where there's waste and where you can cut out some of these things. And then we come on to employee costs. Okay, now this means that basically you're going to have to vary the contracts you have with your employees as part of your cost cutting exercises to try and keep the business going. So that means you're varying their contracts. So whatever you decide to do here, once you've done, you need to put the proposal out to the employees and get them to agree and buy in before you implement. So you may want to look at things like, well, you may have to reduce staff. All right, you may have to lay off people, make people redundant. You may have to consider terminating temporary contracts, casual contracts that maybe you no longer, you can reduce it or maybe cancel them all temporarily for now. You're going to have to look at reducing salaries. You may have to consider reducing hours, maybe moving from salary to wages, which basically means you're paying for the time that they actually work. These are some of the things you can also do to bring the cost of employees down as well, to help with the bottom line. You can also look at contractors. Maybe you're using consultants or contractors to do work. Could you minimize the hours? Could you renegotiate the pricing? Could you renegotiate the payment terms or even the project terms? Could you freeze it temporarily for now as a way of cutting expenses? You may also want to look at your contractors or your contracts that you have out there with consultants and external people. That's all areas that you can look at to try and make to try and cut costs. Okay, so really this exercise really required you to do the tactic 1 planning, and now you've done it. You're really going into the financials to really see how you're going to bring in cash and really cut out expenses that you don't need. This is really important, all right, that you do. This is really the core of us being able to survive through the COVID-19, being able to manage our cash flow and expenses. So I hope that you found this very useful. If you've not watched the tactic 1, I am encouraging you to watch the tactic 1, and then of course you'll be able to do tactic 2, which is to cash in and cash out. In my next video, I'm going to be looking at employee strategies. We're going to look a little bit more closely at how we really manage our employees so that it's effective, because at the end of the day, they have been with us before COVID-19, and even if we have to terminate or we have to cut salaries, etc., there is a right way of doing things, because we also have to be very mindful that we are, as I said last time, we're empathizing and being compassionate. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also press the bell to get notifications when I post new videos. Don't forget to like and comment. Tell me some of the cost cutting and cashing activities that you're doing to survive COVID-19. It's been a pleasure. See you next time.